Well, Ukraine's President Vladimir Zelensky has declared martial law, urging citizens to not panic as Russia launched military strikes. He says Russia has targeted Ukraine's military infrastructure and that explosions have been heard across the country. He's urging Ukrainians to stay home and not to panic.
Dear Ukrainians, this morning, Russian President Vladimir Putin announced a special military operation in the Donbas. Russia carried out strikes on our military infrastructure, on our border guards. Explosions were heard in many cities of Ukraine. We introduce martial law throughout the state. A minute ago, I had a conversation with U.S. President Joe Biden. The U.S. is starting to gather international support. Today we need you, each of you, to be calm. If possible, stay at home. Please. We are working, the army is working. The entire security and defense sector of Ukraine is working. I, the National Security and Defense Council, the government will be in touch. Soon I will be in touch again. Don't panic, we are strong, we are ready for everything, and we will defeat everyone because we are Ukraine. Glory to Ukraine.
Well, for more insight on the recent attacks by Russia on Ukraine, Dan Warren joins us from our offsite studio. Dan, great to see you at this time. It's quite ironic that the start of the Russian military action or operation coincided with the second emergency meeting of the UN Security Council. There have been swift reactions. The United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres calls it a senseless war and says it violates the charter, principle of the charter. He's urging President Putin to call back his troops home. But is it too late for de-escalation?
Yeah, so it's quite obvious now that President Putin has decided it's what he calls a special operation that was in the Donbas region. But we've already heard and seen various targets in the capital, Kyiv, as well as other cities around the country that have been hit by ballistic missiles. And speaking to sources close to the Kremlin, they're saying that the fact is the troops on foot and by road are on the way. They're coming from the north, they're coming from the east and the south. So it is virtually, I would say, impossible if we suddenly saw a U-turn from President Putin. As you said, this was declared during a UN security meeting, and to make matters even more strange is the fact that currently Russia hold the rotating presidency of the Security Council, which starts to question the role of the UN in this. If basically one of their members has been attacked by another member, and there is a large a large number of other countries all condemning this, but there's nothing in effect that the UN seem to do apart from just the usual trying to talk peacefully. We've gone past through peace. We're going to hear all about sanctions today. We're being told there's going to be more sanctions. President Biden has already sent out a statement or two statements after speaking to the Ukrainian president, saying essentially that what we're seeing is that they are going to act swiftly and steadily. Also, Prime Minister Boris Johnson of the UK has said the same. We've just received a tweet now from the Foreign Secretary in Ukraine, basically saying they are asking now for devastating sanctions on Russia now, including SWIFT banking. Now, SWIFT banking is basically the mechanism that allows money to move freely from country to country. If that stopped, that would certainly stop lots of funds going into and out of Russia. Also fully isolate Russia by all means in all formats. Also asks for weapons and equipment for Ukraine, financial assistance and humanitarian assistance. Ukraine, who've been trying to play it down over the last couple of weeks, and even up until the beginning of the week felt that an invasion, especially in the capital of Kyiv, was unlikely, have always been frustrated by some NATO members and the West by saying that the sanctions will come in due course. Now, these sanctions could be implemented today, but they may not even cause any effect for months or even years. Looking at the stock market, the ruble, the Russian currency, is literally in free fall. And also we're seeing that the cost of crude oil, or the Brent crude, has gone to just over $100. It's currently standing at 102. The Moscow Stock Exchange has been suspended. So what's going to happen now for Russians is that everyday Russian people are going to start seeing really severe high inflation, and their currency virtually with value is almost dropping as we speak. So this President Putin has weighed up the cost, weighed up the polls. Lots of Russians saying that this didn't want to see this conflict, but he has gone ahead of it, and it is going to escalate more before we start to see anything calm down shortly.
Able to give an assessment of the scope of this invasion of Ukraine. What's the purpose for going into these regions in Ukraine?
Well, basically, he's going into the separatist regions in order to, what he says, is to demilitarize and denazify the country. He's claiming, and in fact he used the word regime as opposed to calling the government a government. It is worth pointing out that President Zelensky was voted in 2019 with a landslide by most regions throughout the country in a fair and open election, and calling him a Nazi is simply not true. This is President Putin's excuse. He claims that there's even been acts of genocide in the country, and he claims that they are not moving in order to occupy Ukraine, but they're going in order to protect civilians, Russian-speaking civilians, some of the Russian population that live there, in order for them to live freely. But having had said that, and apparently he made the decision at 3 a.m. this morning at Moscow time, and the operation started at 5 to 6 this morning Moscow time. We have seen other cities, including Kiev, the capital, with ballistic missiles. We've heard the alarms go off. So it's certainly what he said, and within an hour of what he said is certainly not basically stacking up to what's actually the scenes that we're seeing at the moment.
President Vladimir Putin said he was going to launch a special defensive peacekeeping operation, he called it, in Donbass, but then he went for the jugular as we're hearing explosions in Kiev. Dan, you mentioned a little bit about oil prices going up to $100 per barrel, a benchmark we haven't seen in 7 years. Obviously, this invasion is well beyond impact. It has an impact well beyond Ukraine. It has an impact on security in Europe, U.S. national security. And let's not forget that a lot of countries, Middle Eastern countries, Africa also depend on Russia and Ukraine for wheat.
Yes, you're right. Basically, there's going to be a massive knock-on effect with this invasion, not just for the wheat markets, but also one problem that Europe has had in order to stand is the fact that some countries like Germany, almost 40% of German energy or gas comes from Russia. Russia know that. Russia have also got oil. They're almost self-sufficient, whereas a lot of European countries, and as you say, a lot of Asian countries can't. So in effect, at the moment, it would seem that Vladimir Putin seems to appear to have the upper hand. As I say, he's gone through the opinion polls. And we've got to remember, with Russian opinion polls, you've got to take them with a grain of salt, because just the nature, if somebody phones up and says, do you agree with the government, it's very likely that you would say no, just purely for personal security reasons. But he has weighed every single cost up, and also what it will do in an international scale and how be reacted. But the fact is, none of these sanctions will affect him personally, which is key. It's even rumoured that he could be one of the richest men on the planet. So he does not seem to matter. He's certainly now got his agenda, and he's going through with it. And As we've said, Western countries, the G7 are due to meet early this morning on the phone. It's actually Germany's first day of taking over the presidency. It was already scheduled pre this invasion, but it's certainly going to be, in effect, listing the final amount of sanctions that we will expect to see. Apparently, there are still more. They don't want to antagonize Putin with too many at one go, in case it will further accelerate this invasion.
Indeed, thank you so much, Dan. We also await the resolution moved by the US to condemn Russia's military actions in Ukraine, which was backed by the UK at the Second Emergency Security Council meeting in New York hours ago. Thank you again, Dan, for the updates from the Ukrainian crisis.